Welcome everyone. I'm Farnaz and I'm excited to have you here today as we explore the powerful shift to LEED V5 and it brings to the design and construction world, especially around the decarbonization. So let's get started. Um, in the next 30 minutes, we will break down what's new in LEED V5, why carbon accountability matters now more than ever, and how you and your team can lead the way. So let's jump to these slides. Today, we will walk through 5 key areas that reflect both the evolution and urgency of LEED V5. We will begin by setting the stage with why carbon accountability in buildings is more critical than ever. And then we will explore what makes LEED V5 different from past versions and highlight the most important new elements in its structure. From there, we will dive deep into embodied carbon, how LEED V5 treats it as a prerequisite, and what strategies are now expected. Finally, we will close the conversation with reflections, tool to prepare your team, and time for your questions. Each section builds on the last, guiding us through a full picture of LEED's new direction. All right, so the question is, what is LEED V5? LEED V5, the latest iteration of the globally recognized leadership in energy and environmental design framework, is poised to be launched soon. This marks the first major update in over a decade, and as the built environment rapidly transforms, LEED V5 is set to redefine sustainability. Buildings are responsible for nearly 40% of global CO2 emissions, and of these, 28% comes from operating buildings, things like heating, cooling, and lighting, and another 11% comes from embodied carbon, or the emissions associated with building materials and construction. Unlike operational carbon, embodied carbon is released upfront, and once emitted, it can't be taken back. That's why this topic is so urgent. LEED V5 is the most significant overall of the LEED rating system to date. It reimagines certification around 3 main core goals, which are climate action, quality of life, and ecological restoration. This structure reflects a deeper understanding of the environmental and societal issues we face, ensuring that projects pursuing LEED V5 are aligned with today's most urgent priorities. So let's talk about the focus area in LEED V5. One of the most striking shifts in LEED V5 is how it allocates points. This slide illustrates the strategic weight LEED V5 places on decarbonization. A full 50% of all available points are now tied to reducing carbon emissions. The remaining 50% is shared equally between quality of life and ecological health. This weighting sends a clear message. Climate action is no longer just one category, it's the foundation of the whole system. All right, so let's start with a definition to talk about decarbonization. Decarbonization is often associated with clean energy, but it goes much further. In LEED V5, it means accounting for all carbon impacts, operational energy, embodied materials, and refrigerants. Each of these plays a role in building's carbon footprint, and tackling them together ensures we are addressing the full life cycle of emissions. Uh, Now let's talk about what is new in LEED V5. LEED V5 makes embodied carbon assessment a non optional prerequisite. This is a huge shift from earlier versions like LEED V4.1, where teams could earn optional points by performing a life cycle assessment. Now, every project must quantify embodied carbon from those three core areas that we talked about earlier, which were a structural system like concrete, steel, wood, etc. Then enclosure components like walls, insulation, roofing, and glazing. And the last is hardscape, which are pavement, parking, concrete sidewalk, and so on. The standard scope follows the A1 to A3 life cycle stages, also known as cradle to gate, covering extraction, transport, and manufacturing. These early stage emissions are upfront, irreversible, and account for a large portion of building's lifetime impact. The prerequisite ensures teams understand material choice not just for cost or durability, but for their climate impact. Okay, well, reducing embodied carbon is absolutely possible, and LEED V5 recognizes that. It means once quantified, embodied carbon can be reduced using several impactful strategies. LEED V5 offers credit for using materials with lower embodied carbon than industry average and for exploring alternatives during design. You can reuse structural or envelope materials, choose like GWP products, for example, blended cement or sustainably harvested wood, or use products that have published EPDs. The sooner you start this process, ideally during, for example, a schematic design, the more options you will have. Also, tools like cove can help you to test different assemblies and reduce carbon before construction even begins. All right, LEED V5 doesn't stop at materials. It adds two new major carbon categories, including job site emissions and refrigerants. For construction, it rewards teams to tracking job site emissions from diesel equipment, generators, and utility power during construction. Also, tracking these helps teams make decisions around electrification of equipments, off-site prefabrication, and more efficient scheduling. On the refrigerant side, project must assess emissions from refrigerant leaks, recharging, and also end-of-life disposal. These are often overlooked, but they can add up fast. This is critical because refrigerant like HFCs can have global warming potential thousands of times higher than CO2. Together, these components that we talked about make LEED V5's carbon assessment one of the most comprehensive in any building rating system. If you're aiming for LEED Platinum in V5 version of LEED, electrification is non-negotiable. You will need to show that your building runs without on-site fossil fuel usage and that it's powered entirely by renewables. Projects targeting lead platinum must now demonstrate that like zero on-site combustion, high operational efficiency, and full reliance on renewable electricity. Electrification reduces scope 1 emissions and align building with zero emissions building definition set by federal government and many states. All right, so about the carbon prerequisite. Carbon assessment prerequisite is the cornerstone of LEED V5's decarbonization strategy. The carbon assessment prerequisite requires every project to perform a whole building LCA, also model operational energy performance to ensure aligning with Energy Star and DOE guidelines. Also quantify refrigerant impact across leakage, refill, and disposal. Together, these create a unified view of all major greenhouse gas emissions from building, embodied, operational, and refrigerant, as we mentioned. This drives accountability not just for one aspect of design, but across the full life cycle of a building. LEED V5 requires a data-driven approach, and luckily, we know a powerful ecosystem of tools and data set to support it. For example, Cove is an automated design platform for intelligent building performance that you can use that through the LEED V5. Our web app enables parametric cost versus energy optimization, automated inputs for energy codes, geometry imports, facade guidance, a strategy comparison, embodied carbon analysis, and much more. So it is the last slide to wrap up. LEED V5 shows us the carbon isn't just a buzzword anymore. It's the heart of the next generation of sustainable design. As practitioners, we now have the opportunity to lead the transition with clarity, urgency, and creativity. And it is not just an opportunity, it is also a responsibility for us. Thank you again for joining me today, and I would be happy to take your question. Okay, what's one piece of advice you have for someone who's nervous about the new requirement? Where can I find more information? That's a very good question because I was about to talk about it. So, if you are interested to gain more information about LEED V5, feel free to scan the QR code here in the corner, top of the a screen that you can see to gain more information about all the requirements for this new version of LEED. I have to hop off for a meeting, but thank you for this. Thank you for joining us. So if you don't have any other question, we can end up this session. But once again, to understanding lead with V5 better and obtaining more information over that, scan the QR code in the screen and read more about it. We're here to help, and feel free to reach out if you have any question.